Look, the story sounds truly awful, horrendous. It really does. An 80-year-old woman, you've heard about this by now, tasered by a police officer in Mississauga, just outside of Toronto. She's now in hospital with a broken hip, the poor thing. What sort of person would do such a thing to an elderly lady? What a coward, what a bully. But then we find out that she may well have had a meat cleaver. It was 3:30 in the morning, dark, and she suffered from dementia. Look, we don't really know what happened, but that hasn't stopped people from rushing to judge the cops, because cop judging is really in fashion these days, isn't it? My mother, God rest her soul, she had dementia and Alzheimer's. It was bloody awful, frankly. It eventually killed her. She was no longer my mum, though. I suppose she was in there somewhere, but she was outwardly a different person. Now, eventually, she merely sat and did nothing, and then she fell into a coma, and that was it. But at one stage of the illness, she was very aggressive and irrational. And while she was in her mid-70s, she was still a strong person. As I say, I don't, and you don't know what happened last night. But if the woman was trying to kill someone, perhaps someone close to her has been suggested, with a meat cleaver, and if the police were, I don't know, in a small space with her, if they tried to take away the weapon, but she was swinging wildly, well, I wonder what they should have done. What would you have done? Hit her? Oh, please. Allow someone to get a cleaver slashed into their arm or face? Well, then, of course, we'd accuse them of either being violent or totally incompetent. This is a perfect storm of a bad policing story for the police. Whatever happened, it had to turn out badly, didn't it? An 80-year-old can't have a perfectly working heart, so tasing is obviously dangerous, but was there a viable, safe alternative? Let's be candid about the police, just for a few moments. They can be patronizing. They give you tickets to raise money rather than to keep the roads safe. There are the gym rats, aren't there, who seem to have had their brains removed and muscle put in place. There are the political ones who give conservatives and Jews and the law-abiding a hard time during demonstrations, but look the other way when it's Muslims or native fanatics or gay people with their clothes off running around. But they're the minority. Most cops are pretty intelligent men and women. They'll be there when you need them. They try to help you out. They take on the thugs when you're in trouble. They want to do the right thing. We'll just show you a clip here. It's from the US, but you know what? There are hundreds of these that you can look at. It's not unique. It's in no way atypical.
5:28 p.m., March 16th. As flames consume trees behind the Windsor Green condos, Lance Corporal Keith Massey of Horry County Police goes door to door helping residents get out. Within seconds, he's faced with a potentially deadly situation.
I got a family trapped. I can't get them out. The fire's taking me over.
We later learn a woman's grandfather was trapped on the third floor. 2 agonizing minutes go by, and then... But soon, heavy flames keep Massey from reaching other buildings.
Yeah, I got 2 units fully involved. I can't even get to them. Marshall Court, 2 units fully involved, and you've got fire spreading to 2 more.
Nearby, Private Joseph Menares pleads with residents to get out.
Attention everyone, this county police, you need to vacate.
Many residents do just that, though some are worried about their pets.
Ma'am, right now, your cat is not our concern. You need to leave.
Later, coughing and gasping from heavy smoke, you can hear Menares help a woman and her dogs get out safely, though it takes an effort.
Come on, puppy.
Probably almost every cop you would meet in Toronto, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, anywhere in this country could tell you a similar story. Too often the police are controlled by high-ranking officials who want promotion or who prefer to have the ear of the politicians rather than the hearts of the rank and file. A good friend of mine, a large, tough, good cop. He happens to be politically conservative, but that's not actually relevant. I always remember this. He insisted on driving our daughter, she was then, 18? Just a platonic friend of his, by the way. He insisted on driving her all the way home, way out of his way where he lived, because he was a gentleman and because he thought her safety was guaranteed if he did that. Okay, that's what he did. It was out of his way, as I say, and it was a lot of effort. I asked another police officer about this, and I said, that was good. And he said, yeah. He said, that's about typical. I'm not naive. I'm not one-sided in this. I'm the first to accuse the police when it's a righteous accusation. But the recent Toronto shooting in particular has enabled and empowered the usual suspects to declare war on the cops, and I find it stale and stupid and utterly pointless and dishonest. One day, you'll need these guys in uniform. And guess what? That particular day, you won't be so critical.
Drop the knife now! Drop the knife! Drop it! Drop it! Drop the knife! Drop the knife! Drop the knife! What's up, don't move. Drop it!
I bet every cop in this country is so sad, so angry every time that is shown again. It's become the context and the backstory for any discussion of what the police do. And as I mentioned in the monologue, 80-year-old woman, victim of a taser, but we don't know what was going on there. And just empathize for a moment. Let's say you are 3 feet away from a woman. She's old, but she has dementia. She's totally irrational, and she is swinging a meat cleaver, a very sharp meat cleaver. So what do? Reason with her? Ross McLean, former officer, crime specialist. A lot of papers you have there.
There's a lot of research that one has to do into this work in the tasers, Michael. Yeah. What the background is, what the regulations are, the damage they do, when they're supposed to be used, when they're not, and it changes from province to province.
Yeah, no, doesn't it?
And I have to tell you, I think Ontario has probably some of the most lax rules around using the taser.
We don't know much about this current case. Before we'll generalize in a few moments, but people are passing judgment. I can't imagine a cop seeing an 80-year-old woman with dementia is going to think, oh, I'll tase her. This will be good for my career. It can be difficult. What do you do with someone? They're 80 years old. They've broken a hip. Probably quite fragile person, but you never know. If you try and grab the cleaver and they cut you, you could be in trouble. If you try and push them on the ground, you'll be accused of violence. If you do nothing, there could have been another person who they had to protect.
Dementia, Alzheimer's are some of the toughest problems to deal with across this country. I've worked with the Alzheimer's Society for about 10 years, working on these issues. I know that you'll have viewers out here who have loved ones at home who have issues with aggression, sundowning. They act up, they do stuff, and it's very stressful. There's personal service workers who have to deal with them. It's going on as we speak right now in long-term care homes. But I think that the police in this case, I mean, I will stand to be corrected when the full details come out on this, but using a taser on an 80-year-old woman before exhausting all the other avenues that they have, I have to say is concerning. And I think that really the Ministry of the Health should also be looking into this a little bit. I mean, there is training that the police can get from the Alzheimer's Society. They do great training on how to deal with this and how to recognize it. You know, that being said, there may be circumstances that we don't know that required this.
80 years old, your heart has to be in, if not rough shape, it's not going to be in perfect quality, just aging. I mean, we all have heart disease of various forms as we get older. It may well be that close to the chest, and that's normally where they're fired, could kill someone.
Absolutely. In fact, they call it in the land of tasers, the dart to the heart distance. How close does the dart go to the heart? The closer it is, the more likely you are to be able to kill someone. So the problem here is, of course, Michael, that if they tased her anywhere close to the chest area, number one, you're not supposed to tase the elderly or stun gun them, to use the correct word.
That's in the regulations?
It's in the regulations. You're to avoid it. Even look at the taser company is probably the most clear about what the dangers are of their weapons of anybody who talks about them.
Yeah.
I constantly see them sort of being misrepresented as being less than lethal and harmless, and they don't do this. Taser will tell you it's a dangerous weapon unless you have proper policies, procedures, and oversights. I heard the Vice President say that not more than a week ago, Michael. They're dangerous, and you have to be careful how you use them. They will tell you that they do not do testing on the elderly because they can't. They don't know how dangerous they are and the damage that they can do.
Are the police getting a fair rap right now? Because your team has changed so much. I think unlike even what happened in Vancouver, other shootings, this one has become a litmus test. I hate using the word iconic, it's overused in media, but this one is actually, people are looking, everything looked through this, through the prism, if you like, the reflection of, the image of the Yatim shooting. If this would have happened, people would have spoken about it, but without the Yatim shooting, I don't think it would have got the same coverage and publicity.
Certainly the Yatim shooting, as you say, has absolutely galvanized the public across Canada and around the world looking at police use of force and accountability. And let's not forget the tasing that took place, or the stun gunning, to use the generic name for it, after these 8 shots were fired. You know, I've looked through all these papers and all the stuff I can find, Michael, and I can't find anything in there that comes close to saying that that looks like it was a reasonable thing to do. That being said, I guess we have to wait. But in the meantime, you know, the government has decided to move ahead in Ontario and give everybody tasers if they want them, without looking at some of these guidelines first. And I think that if they're going to sell these tasers, Michael, my preference would be they sell them as an alternative to lethal force, not as just an alternative to regular physical force where you have to grab someone and deal with them.
Interesting, interesting. Thank you.